Few people dream as big as Elon Musk. Armed with the biggest personal wealth and a market that will throw money at him, he wants to orchestrate a full-blown colony for permanent occupation of planet Mars. Musk lives and breathes this childhood dream of his, and a major way he's preparing to kick off the Martian dream is to build a massive spacecraft that shatters all records. The lowest stage of the spacecraft, the Super Heavy, has taken a while to develop, but it is finally here. What new exciting features has it got since the last time it was tested? We bring you the video of how SpaceX's Super Heavy booster is finally ready. Going to Mars is no small undertaking. Some folks complain about relocating from one city to another in the same country, but Musk is overseeing one of the most intense relocation efforts in human history. According to his plan, volunteer colonizers will move base and abandon the Earth to live on planet Mars. The scale is astonishing in both the distance and the number of people concerned. To get to their destination, these colonizers will cover millions of miles through deep space, where they will need protection from radiation. This trip will take months of moving at unimaginable speed. If this is not complicated enough, Musk wants to move 1 million people from Earth to Mars to ensure the community is self-sustaining. Mars is nowhere like the Earth, where you take the air you breathe for granted. It contains gases that are deadly to take in, so for Musk's travelers to survive, the CEO will have to set up a system that will sustain them before they even step foot on the planet. This will involve tons of cargo of equipment that have to cover the vast distance between the Earth and planet Mars. To be able to convey both people and cargo to Mars, Musk needs a powerful rocket. However, all existing rockets just don't cut it because Musk has other requirements apart from power for the rockets he will use. And when Musk needs something that does not exist, he builds it. This is why his company SpaceX has spent the last few years developing and testing the Starship spacecraft. It is the tallest and most powerful rocket in human history. When stacked together, the Starship stands at an imposing 120 meters. The diameter is impressive as well at 9 meters. The Starship is the pinnacle of launch vehicle development, with the capacity to carry more than 100 metric tons to orbit. When assembled, the Starship is powered by about 35 Raptor rocket engines designed and developed by SpaceX in-house. Musk does not just want a powerful rocket, but he wants one that is reusable. His company has been partially reusing the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets, but the Starship is going to be different because both stages will be completely reusable. Musk wants to operate his fleet of Starships like an airline that quickly turns around a plane for the next flight. This brings down the cost of trips to Mars by a big margin so that it won't be available to only the uber-rich. The Starship consists of the upper stage, or the ship, and the lower stage, also known as the Super Heavy. After separation, the ship will proceed to Mars, or other destinations that we'll mention later in this video. It will enter Mars's atmosphere at a blistering 7.5 kilometers per second and deaccelerate aerodynamically. It will be protected from the heat that the entry will produce by a heat shield that must be strong, as the ship will perform multiple entries. The lower stage, or the Heavy booster, will remain earthbound. After its separation, it will return to land on its retractable legs or be caught in a truly mesmerizing system that Musk has come up with. The booster will be caught in midair by a pair of arms. He said it would be the heaviest object ever caught and could fail catastrophically. But of course, the possibility of failure isn't going to stop Musk. He plans that Mars and other destinations will get their own Mechazilla, the system that catches the booster. SpaceX has been hard at work on the Super Heavy. Every minute counts because Musk wants to start his Mars operation as soon as possible. However, there is another reason for the urgency. The Starship will feature prominently when NASA resumes missions to the Moon. The last time the satellite received human visitors was in December 1972, but NASA plans to send astronauts there in 2024. The space agency will use the Starship to land the astronauts on the surface of the Moon and take them back to the Moon's orbit. For this service, NASA will pay SpaceX about $3 billion. So that is added motivation to get the Starship ready as quick as possible. Interestingly, after the mission to the Moon, NASA will continue to use the Starship because it also wants to ride it to Mars. In NASA's case, it will be transporting trained astronauts, not the general populace. And now, for the third time in 4 months, SpaceX has rolled the flight-worthy Super Heavy towards Starbase's orbital launch mount. For what purpose? With a large crane fitted with a jig whose purpose is to lift boosters moving close to the booster, SpaceX is preparing to install the Super Heavy on the orbital launch mount. Chris Bergin on Twitter captured this moment, tweeting that Booster 4 is being hooked up to the SpaceX LR11000 crane. Boca Chica gal later confirmed in her own tweet that the Super Heavy was going on top of the orbital mount. The Super Heavy Booster 4 prototype had a burst of progress during summer, taking only 6 weeks to assemble. SpaceX rolled it out of the high bay to the orbital launch complex and installed it on a mount specifically designed for testing orbital launches. The Starship prototype joined it, giving us a glimpse of what the combined Starship looked like, and it was impressive. After a few iconic photos, SpaceX abruptly dismantled it and returned the Booster 4 to the high bay for another few weeks of development work before returning it to the orbital pad for the second time. 3 months later, the Super Heavy is making another appearance, this time with significant changes that we will get to in a moment. This particular prototype is the longest-serving one out of the almost 24 SpaceX has produced in the development and testing of the Starship. SpaceX has been using a quick iteration model, which sees it testing many prototypes within a short time, with some tests ending in flames. However, when considered in the light of the facilities needed to test a fully kitted Super Heavy, SpaceX's approach makes sense. The fact is that Starbase still lacks the capacity to truly proof test a Super Heavy. A full test requires about 3,200 tons of liquid nitrogen and 3,200 tons of a combination of liquid methane and oxygen. There is not enough storage capacity for these amounts of fuel. More so, the mount and its surroundings have not been proven to be able to survive the blasting of more than 30 Raptor engines firing at once. If SpaceX is not careful with its plans, a test of the Super Heavy could cause catastrophic damage. Another reason for the delayed test is simply that the Starship is very complex. Take, for instance, the launch sequence. It will require at least 44 separated devices to successfully actuate in rapid and precise succession. A single failure spells trouble. Just before liftoff, all the 20 clamps holding the Super Heavy will rapidly retract back into the orbital launch mount. Another 20 small quick disconnect umbilical panels needed to supply all the Raptor boost engines with ignition gases will also disconnect. The orbital mount, however, shows evidence of progress in its development during the time the Super Heavy prototype was ensconced in the high bay, proving that SpaceX is rapidly approaching the ability to test the Super Heavy or even handle an orbital flight. That would mean this appearance is much more than just a mechanical fit test. SpaceX could kick off full-scale pneumatic and cryogenic proof testing. It could also do a static fire of all the 29 Raptor engines if it is that confident in the orbital mount. This might turn out to be the case, as SpaceX currently has road closures for several days. Closures like this in Boca Chica means something like ship, booster, or pad testing is cooking, so we might finally get a proof test. However, if SpaceX continues its cautious approach, it could theoretically put the Booster 4 prototype through a partial cryo-proof and probably fire up maybe 9 Raptors at once. This will not replace foolproof testing, but will still be sufficient to test the Super Heavy's structural integrity and gather crucial data on multiple Raptors' performance. The Booster 4 still has the 29 Raptor engines that have been installed for several months now. It also has external aero covers and a heat shield meant to enclose all the Raptor engines. The aero covers are meant to protect the heat exchangers, wrecks of pressure vessels, and hydraulic systems installed on the boosters aft. Let us know what you think of the Super Heavy booster in the comments section below.